Welcome in, guys, to the Full Force Fathers podcast, episode 20, Dave. Can you believe it, dude? We are closing in on 6 months of episodes.
It doesn't really seem possible. I mean, it seems to me like just yesterday that we were planning this whole thing out and talking about, our first one and getting the courage to just hit record and go. And now we're almost at the half year mark and we haven't missed a beat, and it's been awesome.
Dude, I'm so stoked. I mean, that's like, you think, oh, your first one, then your fifth one, then your 10th one. Like now we're at the 20th, and then soon enough, we're going to be at 6 months is a long time to consistently do something for 6 months. Yes, I know it's only once a week, but to do anything consistently for that long is it's very impressive.
Yeah, kudos to us. Kudos to everybody who listens and checks us out, and it submits feedback and interacts with us. It's great. That's what we love, and looking forward to continuing this journey along.
Yeah. And so today's episode, guys and gals listening, is going to be a 3-question episode, and it's going to be about advice. But before we hop into the actual show and the Bible verse, I just saw something that was so funny, and I just had to bring it up because, as everyone that listens, I converted Dave into a diehard Cameron Hanes fan. Reading Endure, and Dave was not much on hunting and not much on that type of stuff, and then he read Endure, and now he's just sold on Cameron Hanes. And as you know, Cam is like an idol of mine. I look up to him, and I saw the funniest thing, because if anyone follows him, the dude doesn't take a day off, like ever, never ever. The guy never takes a day off, and he got a new tattoo just a few days ago. He got a new tattoo, and it's on the top of his his shin, the front of his leg, and it's of Tight Bull. So if you ever read the book, Tight Bull is one of the biggest elk he ever hunted on Indian reservation down in Arizona, and he got a tattoo of Tight Bull on his shin. It wraps all the way around his the lower part of his leg. And one thing that Cam Hanes does for motivation is he just loves the haters. He always just he'll post something that a hater shoots him a message, a DM on Instagram or whatever, and he always posts it. And it's funny as shit, because the guy doesn't care what anybody thinks. He's going to run a marathon a day. He's going to bow hunt. He's going to do his thing. So anyways, he gets this tattoo, and I check his Instagram stories out, and he posts a picture of a DM that he got from a guy, and it said, "Hey Cam, big fan," something along those lines. "How many days off are you going to take from running now that you got a tattoo on your leg?" And the funny, he just said, I'm pretty sure it was just the LOL face, and he posted that on his story. And what does he do afterwards, Dave? He goes and he posts an Instagram story of him running 20 miles or something with the tattoo artist the same day he got the tattoo. And he goes,
"That's amazing."
He goes, "It's amazing." And the moral of the story is, he goes, "It's amazing how many of us out there just look for an excuse to take a day off, or look for an excuse to not, oh, I got a tattoo. I need to take a week off of running." You know what I mean? I just thought it was hilarious, but it ties into like everyone's looking for an easy way out. Everyone's looking for an excuse to not do something.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody is looking for an excuse. And man, he is great. You have converted me. And how great is it that he found a tattoo artist that wanted to go on a 20-mile run with him after he did the work on him? I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, and I don't know if they ran 20 miles in that particular moment, because I think his daily total was a marathon like usual. But they're running through the University of Oregon campus, Hayward Stadium's there. I mean, it's tremendous. This dude, I talk about him probably too much, but it's unbelievable. He just, I got a text message this morning from a good buddy of ours who's reading that book right now. We turned him on to reading that book, and he's like, "Dude, this dude," and I have my phone. I'm gonna read the text message. I have to. He literally said, "What'd he say?" He goes, "That Cam fella is a different breed of man. The book is good. The book is good. Good read, inspiring. Yada yada yada. But that fella." I mean, it's hilarious.
Cam fella.
Dude, I'll convert.
That's awesome.
I bought that book for my dad for Father's Day. I will say, if you guys want a copy of Cam Hanes' book, Endure, send a message to us on Instagram or wherever, and I'll make sure you get a copy in your hand. That book is that good. So
yeah, it really is. I almost want to do another book recommendation.
Yeah.
Now that you got me talking about it.
Yeah, we that was our longest book recommendation ever on the show, where we just kind of ranted and raved on them for like 10 minutes. But like I didn't even touch everything that I want to touch in that book in terms of the mental, the stability, the inspiration, the motivation, all that stuff that comes with it. But anyways,
we talked last week about how we want to get guests on the show. Maybe we can get Cam on the show. How about that?
It's impossible. He won't. He doesn't do podcasts. I'm pretty sure he's been on podcasts. He's been on Andy's show. We listened to that. He's been on Nick Bear's show. He's been on Jocko's show. He's been, he does Rogan. He's done Rogan multiple times. But he also posts that. Some guy offered him a bunch of money to go on a show, and he posted that DM on his story as well. I don't do podcasts.
That's great. He's got too many miles to run. Are you kidding?
He did do the podcast tour when the book came out, which I understand for publicity is probably a really smart thing, but he just, he doesn't do them. But anyway, so now that I, got a little Cam story out of the way here, let's hop into today's show. First thing I want to do is start with the Bible verse, and it ties right into our show today on advice. And the Bible verse comes from Proverbs. If you're looking for a easier way to get into your faith a little bit, first of all, go buy yourself a Bible. All right, I could book recommendation the Bible every single show. But a long time ago, a good friend of mine, he told me, a good place to start in the Bible is by reading Proverbs. There's 31 Proverbs, and usually there's 30 or 31 days in a month. And he said what he does every morning, and I've adopted this. The day of the month is the day, that chapter proverb that he reads that day. So if you start at the first of the month and start with Proverbs 1, Proverbs 2, all the way through, at the end of the month, you'll have read the whole book of Proverbs and then repeat it month after month. And he told me you'll change your life if you do that for a full 12 months. And I truly believe him in Proverbs. But like I say, I take a lot out of Proverbs because I believe it's really a cut and dry way of good and bad. It's an easier read. In terms of the Bible, you don't get into a lot of the really in-depth stuff. It's a lot about right and wrong. It's very, like I said, it's very cut and dry. But so today's verse comes from Proverbs. That's just a little side note. If you're looking on where to start in your faith journey and you want to get more in touch with your faith and with God, read Proverbs. Start whatever day of the month it is, read that chapter. And believe me, the chapters are not all that long. It's also a quicker read instead of jumping into a full-length book out of the Bible. But Proverbs chapter 12, verse 15 says, "The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man is he who listens to counsel." And I picked that verse today because we're talking about advice. And I think as dads, we need to lean in on each other a little bit. We need to take advice from each other because we don't know all the answers. None of us do. And advice is good. If you think if you're a know-it-all, if you think you know everything, then you're so disconnected from reality because there's always something, Dave, that we can learn. Something, hey, listen, I don't know how to wire anything. I go to Dave for any of my electrical advice. And even then I still don't do it. I make him do it, or Dave doesn't know everything about running, right? So instead of, thinking, oh, I watched this YouTube or I read this book or I took this course, he asks for advice when it comes to that stuff. And that's where Dave and I are constantly bouncing, advice each other's way. And I really feel like we've kind of grown our circle. Full Force Fathers is working. I do speak to other fathers now via text message or a phone call every once in a while. We talk about advice and how we can help each other out. So I think the Bible verse really is a short, quick one, right? But a wise man is he who listens to counsel. So go ahead, Dave. Give me your initial reaction on that verse out of Proverbs.
Yeah, I think it's so important to take advice from people who have been there, done that, and experienced things in life. We all know the person in our life who thinks they know everything. You try and have a conversation with them. It's always, oh, I've done that, or I know a better way to do this. And the fact of the matter is most of the time they don't, and they're just not open to that information. So I love to seek information from other people. Now, do I always take the advice that I get? No, I don't. But I always listen to the advice to hear what it is, because there's always, there's always multiple ways to do something and accomplish something. And I'm always open to finding out what those things are. And I think that proverb speaks exactly to that. If you think you know everything, you really know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's listening to the people around you, the people that are successful. You want to be successful in business. Find somebody that's been successful in business and go learn from that person. You want to be a better father or a better parent. Go find somebody that you see as a successful parent and ask them how they're doing it and find out those things. You want to start, a weight loss journey or just getting healthier. Find someone who's very physically fit. Reach out to you. I've reached out to you in that world, and how do I do this? I'm tired. I'm exhausted. My legs are shot. What should I do to rebound? How do I get myself back together? I called you the other day about intermittent fasting. I was thinking about doing that. I've heard you talk about it countless times with me. So this time, I was at a place where I wanted to possibly do it. So we had that conversation. So getting information from people is so important. And if you close yourself off to the outside world, to the people that have done things, you're missing out on so many things that can be so valuable and enhance your life.
Yeah, two things there that you mentioned that I want to follow up on. That day that you had asked me about intermittent fasting, I think that was like a day of advice, because I think we had a big long conversation on that, and we also had a conversation on IRAs, which Dave knows. Money talk, not this guy. It is not my thing, but I lean on Dave. I lean on Dave for any kind of financial advice, because since I've met Dave years ago now, and we've become close friends, I have just leaning on his advice and taking, and excuse me, not all his advice, because like the second part of what you said there is, you're being honest. You listen to advice, but you don't always take it, right? And sometimes that proves out to be right, and sometimes you probably should have listened to the advice, But in that retrospect, sure. I go to Dave for advice all the time. Same thing, like he mentioned the fitness thing. So those were the two things on your little topic there. And I want to jump into, we're going to do 3 questions here on advice today. Before we just start blabbing on about advice, let's actually, because a lot of this stuff I think we can just start talking about is what we're going to put in our answers. So today we're going to, as Full Force Fathers is about your faith, your fitness, and your finances. In no particular order. One doesn't supersede the other. It could be finances, fitness, faith, finances. It doesn't matter. Those are the big 3 for us. That's why we started Full Force Fathers. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do, the same question will be posed to both of us. Okay. So the first one, just because it's first on my show notes, I'm going to ask you, Dave, what is the best piece of financial advice you have? It's a 2-parter. You have ever received, and what's the best piece of financial advice you have ever given to somebody? And we'll start there. You go, I go, and we'll go through the 3.
Okay. The best piece of financial advice I ever got was to read The Total Money Makeover. It was from a coworker that I had back at ESPN, and this was years and years ago. And he gave me the book, and he goes, I want you to read this. He and I have been talking about debt and whatnot. And he's like, my family and I did this, and it was incredible. So I took the book and I read it. And at the time, I wasn't in a place that I was ready to make that leap. And I read the book and I was like, wow, this all sounds amazing. And it did. And I talked to Casey about it, and she read the book, and yeah. This looks good, but how can we possibly live a debt-free life? Like, that's impossible. But that was the best piece of advice I got. And in turn, I ultimately found my way back to the book, to Dave Ramsey, and ultimately the best overall advice is that debt is dumb and cash is king. And I will stand by that forever. If you are living a life of debt, you're robbing your future self. You're robbing your current self, because you can't do the things that you want to do. When you're consumed by consumer debt, it debilitates your ability to experience the life that you want to experience, because there's always going to be creditors and lenders that are coming and looking for their money. You're going to dread going to the mailbox. You're going to dread all those things, because at the end of the month, you're trying to find enough to pay your bills. And ultimately, you're usually, that debt is continuing to mount because of those interest rates. So debt is dumb, cash is king. that is the best overall piece of advice I've ever gotten. Now, the best piece of advice that I've ever given to someone is to start saving at a young age, because the effects of compound interest will forever change their life. Now, if you get out of school at the age of 18, out of high school, and you go straight into the workforce, if you don't start a Roth IRA, you are robbing yourself of an incredible, incredible future. And if we as full force fathers don't teach our kids to get out of school debt free, do not accumulate debt, work hard, pay for the things that you need in your life, and save diligently, focused, intentional. Kids nowadays, we did a whole other episode on this, can become millionaires in no time because of compound interest. Saving at a young age makes all the difference in the world and will, drastically reduce the stress you have later in life. And it's going to allow you to really change the generations to come, change your family tree, create generational wealth if you just start at a young age and you stick with it consistently over time. So that is the best advice I've ever given. And I really hope that the fathers that are listening to this, even the mothers that we know listen to this, hone in on that and realize how important that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same question posed to me, and it's, Dave is the money man, as you know, and my best piece of financial advice I've ever received was from you, Dave. And it was, you said something to me one day and you're like, dude, credit cards are stupid. They're no good. You don't need them. And I'm like, but man, I get miles, but man, I get points. And one thing that Dave said to me, and our fathers, we learn a lot from our dads. Our dads aren't credit card free, but our parents, I know for sure, my dad and your dad both, when they use a credit card, they pay it off in full every month. All right. If you're going to use a credit card, that's the way to do it, but you don't need one. And when Dave said something to me real simply, he goes, do you pay your credit card off in full every month? I'm like, no, dude, that's what the minimum balance is for. Can you see the drastic change as to where I am now to the way I used to talk? I'm like, dude, that's what the minimum balance for. He goes, well, what do you use for your credit card? And Dave goes, he said that to me. And I said, well, groceries, gas. And he goes, you're such a fucking moron. And I said, why? He goes, dude, that means you make your minimum payment. He goes, that means you're paying for that empty tank of gas that you got 6 months ago, 2-3 years from now. You're paying for those bananas that you ate 2-3 years from now at 20% interest. And it never really occurred to me or clicked that way. Because I'm like, but Dave, I'm getting miles, dude. I got one free flight last year, And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, this guy's a moron, But turns out, after you had that tough conversation, and Andy and I did, dude, swimming in credit card debt, and we worked our asses off to get rid of it. And that's the best piece of financial advice I ever got. I'm now going over 2 years without a credit card. I don't even own a credit card. And for those of you that say you can't buy stuff without a credit card, that's a total lie. You can go get a bank check. You can pay for it in cold hard cash if you want to. You can call your bank up. Yeah, is there a little bit of a pain in the ass every once in a while? If you got to call your bank up and say, hey, my debit card, I need to up the limit today. You know what I mean? To buy whatever the hell you want. But I also look at it as this. If you can't pay for it in cash, you really can't afford it. And that's the whole purpose. And that's why the best piece of information I ever received was how stupid credit cards were, because they really are. My life has only been better since I haven't owned one. And I haven't used one in over 2 years. Like I said, I don't even own a credit card. There's not one in my wallet. There's not one in my wife's wallet. And that's, so that's the best piece of financial advice I read, because it literally changed my financial structure instantaneously. I no longer cared about the mailbox. I no longer, you know what I mean? I no longer cared as me.
You didn't fear that walk to the mailbox.
I'm a commission-based job. All right. If I don't have a great month, I don't have to I don't got to worry about it, because I don't have any, credit card statements that I'm like, $368 to Discover. You know what I mean? I don't even worry about it. It literally changed my entire financial trajectory of the way Andy and I now live life without them. And the second part, what's the best financial advice I have given to someone, which I should never give anyone financial advice, because I've had plenty of issues in the past with credit cards and debt and all that other stuff. But if I had to give it, it kind of is very similar to what Dave, I'm going to echo Dave, dude, start young, start a savings account, get an IRA, contribute The second you're available to contribute to it, start it. And the other piece, like a little spot next to it. If you got it in a savings account, don't get a debit card attached to it, because if you do, you're gonna swipe it. And I mean, that sounds stupid, but like we have 2 savings accounts, Andy and I, that we don't have any debit cards attached to it, because you probably would swipe it, whether you think you would or not. Don't even give yourself the chance. If you have any kind of impulse in your personality, don't even give yourself the chance of that. So those are my 2 pieces of advice that I've received and I've given.
Excellent. I think that's a great point on the debit card being attached to it too. Like, I've had that problem in the past. I've got we've got our normal accounts, and then we have a money market that our emergency fund sits in.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't just swipe a debit card for it, but I can go to my app and I can move the money over. So if I need it in a pinch, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself, I had a problem with that at one point. I realized I sent money over. I'm like, why did I do that? That's not what that is there for. So making it as hard as possible to access that money that truly is, that you've saved, that you have for something special, or maybe it's an emergency, maybe it's a special trip someday, or college, future house. Eliminate the ability to access it. I think that's some great advice.
Yeah. What's question number 2, Dave?
All right, so we're going to kick this over to you for your first answer, because you are the fitness guy. So what's the best piece of fitness advice that you've received and that you have given?
Okay, so there's 2 pieces to this. They're equal in my opinion. Number 1, and people are gonna be like, oh, he's gonna say lift weights, he's gonna say this, that, and no. 2 very simple things are the 2 best pieces of advice I've ever received. Drink more water. Number 1, your body's made up of mostly water, and the population in this country grossly walks around every day dehydrated, whether they believe it or not. Dude, water, I'm telling you, water is a magic drug. How many friends of mine get sick? You ask them how much water they drink. A glass or 2, but I drink a soda, and I drink a juice, and I drink a Gatorade. Like, water is probably the most underrated natural medicine in the world, dude. If you stay hydrated, your possibility and potential for getting sick drop tenfold. Okay, so that's the first one. Drink more water. All right, and the second one that's equally as important is move your body every day. I don't mean go for a run. Doesn't have to be a marathon. It doesn't have to mean you got to do some crazy cardio class or kickboxing class or get to the gym and pump iron. Just move. Our humans at our very core, we're nomads. We're meant to move across long distances. So get up and move every day. The cheapest investment you can make in yourself is to go buy a step counter. You don't got to buy a Garmin or an Apple Watch. Go get a freaking $29.95 step counter and make a goal. 10,000 steps a day, 8,000 steps a day if you are really behind the 8 ball in your fitness. But if there's 2 people, and I can combine those. Some of the best advice I've ever received: drink a gallon of water a day and walk 10,000 steps a day. Those are the 2 most simplest forms of advice I've ever received, and I've heard them from multiple trainers that are better than me, that are fitter than me. Those are the 2 best pieces of advice I've ever given. And the second, and the advice to give, is any movement will work. All right, find something that works for you. Okay, so if you feel like you're a runner, great, then start to run. If you can't run, start to walk. If you are a swimmer, jump in the freaking pool and do the damn doggy paddle. If you want to ride a bike because you got bad knees and you don't have the capacity to run with the impact, grab a damn bike and go find a place to ride. If you can't ride a bike because you don't live in a bike-friendly community, get on a bike at a gym. Buy a stationary bike for your house. But you are meant to move. You need to move every day. There is absolutely, unless you're incapacitated in a freaking hospital or your legs don't work, there's absolutely no reason why you are not moving every single day. I don't want to hear the weather. I don't want to hear I don't live in this place or that place. It's too hot. It's too cold. Shut up and move. Make sure you make movement part of your daily routine. That's the best advice I can give to anybody. So, my answer is probably the same for both. Drink more water and move. And the best advice to give people: throw your soda away, throw your shit out, and drink and move more. I got a question the other day, and this is just a good piece of advice in general on fitness. Someone said, "Oh man, I want to get abs. I can't get abs." And everyone loves abs because it's a show muscle, right? Ooh, it shows that I do crunches. It shows that I do core workouts. Really the most important part is your core, but everyone loves the show muscles, right? The quote unquote six pack. And like, how do I do it? I go to the gym every day and I can't do it. And I said to them, and this is a quote that I stole, and I'm not taking credit for the quote, but it is so true. Go to your kitchen and do 5 reps of don't eat bullshit every day if you want abs. Go do 5 reps of cut the soda out of your diet every day. Okay? Movement and water are the 2 big ones. Go ahead, Dave.
That's great. Yeah, so you just touched on the best piece of fitness advice I've ever received, which was from you, and that's any movement's going to make a difference. Just keep moving, whatever it is. I had a situation, yesterday to today, and I texted you this morning, that I had a great workout. I had a great run today. Yesterday, my body didn't feel it. I had been running hard for a few weeks, and it just felt kind of depleted. So I kept moving yesterday. I did my workouts. I rucked twice. And so neither was, an exceptionally, aggressive workout where I burned a ton of calories, but I kept moving, and I threw the weight vest on and got through my workouts. And in turn, that gave my body a little rest. And today I hammered a run this morning and I felt better than I felt in ages. But just keep moving. Like typically in the past, what I would have done is I would have laid it up yesterday. I wouldn't have done anything. I'd be like, oh man, I'm tired. I'm just going to stay in bed. I'm not going to do anything. And then later after dinner, I'd probably sit down on the couch and call it a night. Right. But that's not advancing my goals. It's not advancing my fitness level. So what did I do? I woke up, I threw on the shoes, got the weight vest, and I went and I kept moving. And you said before, instead of just sitting at your desk all day long, get up, knock out some push-ups, knock out some crunches, do a few things because you can fit those things into the day. So for me, that is the best piece of advice I've ever given. It doesn't have to, or ever received. It doesn't have to be, a crazy workout all the time. You just need to move your body. You need to stand up. You need to get the blood flowing. You need to stretch. You need to do those things because it's going to make you feel so much better. And it has. I feel better this year than I've ever felt in my entire life. And you know this, Brett. You see me most of the time. Like I've moved more in the first 6+ months of this year than I've ever done in a year of my life. Like I've been adamant, disciplined with it, and it has made a huge difference. Now, best piece of advice I've ever given to someone. I'm going to take a page from your book. I probably shouldn't be giving fitness advice. But for me, if I had to tell someone, it's find something that works for you and do it. There's so many diets out there. There's so many fitness plans, training plans, people to listen to. Find something that works for you, whether that be a person that you listen to, that you get advice from. Find something that's specific that person kind of just, gets you and you kind of, their personality, it matches yours. Find a diet that works for you. Everybody's got something different that they like to do. The thing that I like might not work for you. So find the thing that works for you and just do it. For me, like one of the things I know is just like credit cards, I can't have credit cards. I can't have junk food in the house because shit, I'm going to eat it. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't bring that stuff into the house, but for other people that don't have that problem, yeah, you can have it for your spouse or your kids that like it and it's not a problem. But like we each have to find what works for us, but just find something that works and stick with it. Stick with it.
Perfect. Yeah. And also just to touch base, I mean, some of us fathers, we work out with our spouses and some of us don't. And like Dave said, find something that works for you. What works for you doesn't always work. And this is a husband-wife little segment that's free 30 seconds of knowledge. What works for you doesn't always work for your wife, and what works for your wife doesn't always work for you. Andine is the love of my life. We have a great marriage. I can't work out with her. 100% of her workouts, I can maybe do 20% of them because we don't click the same way. We don't tick the same way when it comes to workouts. She likes to do it her way. I'm a maniac. Why aren't you yelling? Why aren't you running harder? Why aren't you sweating? You know what I mean? Why aren't you picking up a heavier weight? You can do better. And she grounds me. She's like, listen, dude, what you do is not for me, and what I do is not for you. You know what I mean? So that's just a quick little piece of advice when it comes to if you do exercise with your spouse, the old quote, couples who work out together stay together. Bullshit. That's not the truth. It doesn't have to be the truth. Do what, like that, just to double down what you said, do what works for you, and it's not going to work for everybody else.
Yeah, agreed. All right, so let's take this into the third piece of Full Force Fathers, and that's faith. So, what's the best piece of advice you've received and given in regards to someone's faith?
Okay, so the best piece of advice I've ever received comes from a really good friend of ours, a mutual friend named Ben. Read and interpret the Bible in your own way. He told me, he goes, everybody reads it and interprets it a little bit differently. Even you and I have interpreted Bible verses on this show differently. It's just the way that it is. The Bible's not a one size fits all. Now there is truth. There is true and exact statements in the Bible that those are the cut and dry parts, right? But in general, the best piece of advice I ever received is to just interpret it your own way. Read it, pick it up. All right. Ben years ago gave me a Bible, and I said, dude, Dave and I were both Catholic, raised Catholic. It's very strict, but I'm not opposed to other, going to a Christian church or whatever, however you want to, whatever section of faith that you believe in or however you want to do it. There's different rules and things for every church, but really, I really think reading the Bible on your own terms gives you a very strong foundation in your faith as to how you interpret it. Ben gave me a little bit of advice when he first gave me the Bible. And now, obviously, I read the Bible as a kid, went to religious education, made all my sacraments, yada, yada, yada. Went to church, go to church every Sunday. And he's like, and I'm like, and I was looking for advice. I said, Ben, where do I start with this thing? This book is this thick. There's 2,000 pages in it. Like, where do I start? And he's like, and he gave me advice. Start with the book of John. Just read the book of John. Take it at your own pace. You're only, and interpret it the way you interpret it. And then we were doing weekly calls, just 30 minutes here and there. What you read? How did it make you feel? How did you react to it? So that's my piece of advice to give to you. Read and interpret the Bible. Go get a Bible, but read and interpret it in your own way, because no one is going to read it the same way. And the best advice to give is start by picking up your Bible and don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of people get very skittish and shy around God talk that makes people uncomfortable. And in the world that we live in, go figure. It's you know what I mean? Because, the Bible's frowned upon, by the way, in a lot of places nowadays. But first of all, if you want advice on faith, get yourself a Bible, start reading it, and start asking questions. We can turn you to a couple people, ask, anyone, ask your priest at your local church, your pastor, your deacon, whoever it may be. But don't be ashamed to ask questions, because there are parts of the Bible that I still think are really confusing. So what do? I ask questions. So from a faith aspect, read the Bible, ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, for me, the best piece of advice I was ever given, it was something I heard on another podcast, was to approach your faith in a way that works best for you and your family. Like you said, we were raised Catholic. It's very strict in that regard. But I don't do everything that's laid out in the Catholic religion. I just don't. There's a lot of pieces of it that I do follow, and that we bring our kids into religious education. That's one thing that I did growing up. So I went to religious education, helped me learn about my faith, strengthen that bond with God and Jesus, and but it's different. Again, it's different for everyone. Everyone's got a different take on it. Things that maybe they do believe in, but some things that maybe don't seem right. So approaching your faith in a way that works for you and your family. And now the best advice I've given is that it takes time to open up yourself to faith. Not everyone knows everything. Everybody starts in a different place. So don't feel embarrassed. Like the first time you walk into church and you see people doing things a certain way, if you don't know what they're doing or how they're doing it, don't be embarrassed about that. Don't shy away from it. Take that time to learn and to see what everyone's doing and the prayers that they're saying. And, it is uncomfortable for people, especially when people don't feel that they know what they should know. But everybody starts in a different place, and that's okay. And I think the great thing about faith and whatever faith you are is people are always so welcoming when you come to church. I always used to love, like, back in Connecticut, we had switched churches at one point, and because our priest had left the church we had gone to, and he went to a place that was too far away for us to go, so we switched churches. And I'll never forget the first time we went in, we sat down, and the people behind us in the pew were so welcoming to us. We had Kendall with us, and she was, just a baby, and they didn't care that she was crying and this. It was just such a welcoming environment, and just jump in, don't feel embarrassed, and wherever you're starting at.
Yeah, and one piece of follow-up advice on faith is you don't need to feel that you need to press God, Jesus, the Bible, your faith. You don't need to press that on everyone. Everyone receives it and takes it completely different. So, You know what I mean? So everyone takes time to come around. Some people never come around to it. So don't feel the need that, man, I feel refreshed. I found God, or however you want it. You don't need to just, jam it down people's throats, because like you said, it makes people uncomfortable. Everyone's going to take their time at their own pace. And if they're just not interested, then there's that as well. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's your 3 pieces of advice: financial, fitness, and faith, from the Full Force Fathers podcast. Dave, what do we have for a book recommendation today?
Well, talking about advice, this one ties into the financial aspect of advice, and it's a book by Rachel Cruz, and it's called Love Your Life, Not Theirs.
Move it over in front of your face so we can see the whole thing.
You can't see the whole thing?
There it is. Love Your Life, Not Theirs.
There it is.
Perfect.
Yeah. Love Your Life, Not Theirs by Rachel Cruz. And for those that don't know, Rachel Cruz is the daughter of Dave Ramsey. She's our age, so she's kind of the younger generation, and she takes an interesting spin on the principles that they follow at Ramsey Solutions, that they push out, and it's really about, everybody says keeping up with the Joneses. That's always a big thing, especially with social media now. You see all these people with their vacations and the stuff that they're buying, their cars, their clothes, their trips, all these things. You see the best of their life, but at the end of the day, you don't know how they're doing that. They could be consumed with debt. The stress level in their life could be astronomical. They could have a terrible relationship with their family, whatever it may be. You're just seeing a small snapshot. So this book really gets into teaching you about loving yourself and loving the life that you have with your family, with the things that are important to you, and not focusing so much on what you see on social media, maybe what you see around town, what the other parents are driving at drop off and pick up for their kids. It's really focusing in. It's got a lot of great ideas, habits to follow. The idea of, opening up yourself to talking about money and getting more comfortable and having it not be so, such a touchy subject in the family. So it's a great book. I recommend everybody go out and check it out. We had done another book recommendation with hers, Smart Money, Smart Kids. So she's written a few books and they're great. So check this one out. Love Your Life, Not Theirs.
The reason why I like Rachel too is, she's not as well known, obviously, as her father, number one. But like you said, she's our age, so she gives it a little bit different spin. Now, I'm not saying Dave's old and ancient, but Dave's kind of old, and his ways and his practical knowledge is so. Obviously, it's untouchable, but it's also aged at this point. So to have his daughter out there writing books and doing shows and stuff like this one. Because the best thing you hit on is it's how many people look at the car that everybody else freaking drives and cares. You know what I mean? It's believable. But that's what's so cool about her. It's like she just gives you obviously a younger version of her father. The principles are still the same, but it's just a more modern, updated way of it. You know?
Yeah, and if an interesting thing, if you're looking to get your spouse involved in sort of the financial aspect, she's a great follow on Instagram, on YouTube. She does her own show. Like Casey loves the stuff that Rachel Cruz puts out, the content that she puts out. So if you're looking for another way to maybe get your spouse on board, maybe turn them on to Rachel and some of her content, and maybe that'll help loosen some of that tension and give them, give your spouse kind of another perspective to look at and a different way of seeing things. So she does put a cool spin on it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, guys, go get that book and read it. But yeah, we're excited. This was a fun episode. I like, not that I'm the best advice giver, and like Dave said earlier, I'm probably not the best advice taker. But as fathers, if we lean on each other, I think that's the most important part. Be there for each other, give advice, whether it's used or not, however you want to do it. But that's what we do here at Full Force Fathers. We give advice to help other dads, and we expect advice in return to help us. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. I had a call earlier this week with somebody from Connecticut that his stepson had just gotten an inheritance from his grandmother, and they wanted to make sure that the money went to good use. The kid wants to go to school. He's 15, and they don't have any money saved for him, so they wanted to make sure that this money went to to good use to get as much traction for him going into school. And I thought it was so great that he called me, because he's one of those people that knows a lot of stuff and has a hard time taking advice. Mm-hmm. And for him to call me out of the blue, that was pretty awesome. And it just goes to show that people can adapt and change over time. And, if you're asking for advice, maybe that person doesn't have it, they'll probably be able to direct you to somebody that does.
Absolutely.
So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for advice from whoever it is. It's so valuable to learn things from people and bounce ideas off each other, because that's how we get better.
Absolutely. Well, this has been episode 20, guys. We appreciate you all listening in. And Dave, go ahead, take us home.
All right, everybody, get out there, live the full force life, enjoy that time with the kids. Give some advice, seek some advice, and enjoy your day. And we're going to talk to you soon.